Soundstripe.
Okay, so today we're talking with Lydia. Thank you for joining us. So tell us a little bit about your brand, which is Foreable Photography.
Yes.
And perhaps how you got started.
Foreable Photography is it's a photography business. I do a lot of family photography, business photography, and I offer some luxe experience photography as well. Started my business 13 years ago.
Wow. Yep.
In amongst my spare time with kids, slotting in where I can with those.
I think I was on a photo shoot with you with the little bubs one time.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding shoot?
I think so.
Yeah. So I'm a contract photographer for the Australian Breastfeeding Project.
Yeah.
Which is exciting because it means I love that job because I get to go and take photos and then send the photos off and I don't have to do anything else with them. Yeah. I like that one.
Yeah.
That's good. I got started, I needed a hobby. I actually started my business before I had children.
Yeah.
I was working a 9-to-5 job and it was literally beating my brain out.
Yeah.
So I started up doing some landscape stuff I used to do a bit of artwork and stuff with my photos, and then having kids, I moved in and started taking photos of kids at mothers groups and stuff like that, and was told, oh, you've got a real eye. Oh, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then moved into people and then quickly discovered that there was a real need for, in particular, not necessarily family photos, but photos for businesses and things like that. And you often, as a photographer, sit around watching things pop up on your socials or whatever and go,
I need some help there.
I think you could do that better. Yeah. So I've researched over the years and come up with some really solid, concrete programs or packages that I do with my businesses to make sure that we can get the most out of what they're paying for.
And what I like about your approach is that, so you've incorporated, you're the boss's storyteller. So tell us a little bit about your process of when you sort of first engage, because we want to talk about how to show up as you are and to show your true, brand self, I suppose, and your brand through visual images.
Yeah.
So what's your process to be able to capture that?
So, like I said, it was about 2019, 2020 when the imagery and stuff really started getting pushed, that you needed to look past stock images and things like that for your business. And so I sat back and researched how can I make this work so that when a business turns up to a photo shoot, it's nice and easy, they know what to expect, and they know that they're going to actually get what they want at the end of the session. So it was what I was hearing a lot. I had these photos taken and we just didn't think, we thought it would turn out differently. And
or that doesn't really look like me.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So, like highly posed images, photos that have been...
If they don't match the brand, that's a real misalignment there, and it's really hard to use them.
Yeah.
If there were images that I didn't feel looked like me, I wouldn't want to use them. So.
Also, moving past headshots and things. Headshots are great and you do need them, and I do them, but you look through a history of headshots, and for me, I looked at them and it always looked like the people were sitting around looking like they were needing to go to the toilet instead of like that. So, like sitting forward, looking really uncomfortable. So
you want to make people feel comfortable, correct. And then their real selves will come out.
That's it. So I came up with a really unique process that, as far as I'm aware, no one else is or was really doing at the time. Where I start off with my clients. We have we obviously do the initial emails backwards and forwards, but I actually have curated a series of questionnaires that I work with clients from the start, and then further down the track if they continue to come to me as a photographer, where we deep dive into what their business is, what their story is, what their branding looks like, what their aspirations are for their photo shoot. And I go away, I have a look at what they've read over, they give me words that they associate with their business and stuff in their first questionnaire and that sort of thing. And then I go away, have a little mull over what they've told me, and then send through like a visual mood board type thing that often identifies what type of props I think the things they've told me in their answers to their questions are going to portray what they've told me, locations that they might like to go to, and from there we do a creative consult and go over a location if they have any more questions.
So there's really no surprises when they get to the photo shoot.
Yeah, they
and
know
it
what
makes
to expect.
Makes your job easier and their job to show up as they are easier, doesn't it? Because they've had that preparation.
Yes. Yeah. So it is really unique. I've been told by many people who've been in an industry to do with having business photos taken, website designer, so
you're doing a lot of foundational work there, aren't you? Like you're really sort of helping them almost work out and get clear on their brand as well because the visuals can tell such a story.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and photography can cost thousands if you want it to, and you don't want to go and do that and then come away and go, no, that wasn't right. That wasn't what I wanted. That didn't feel right. That hasn't conveyed our story at all. And I've had clients come to me and and go, I had these done and they weren't right, and we looked too posed or we looked uncomfortable or what have you, and then they go through this process with me and have their photos done, make their selections, and then walk away and give me reviews like, this is so unique, I felt really comfortable, I knew what to expect.
And represented their brand as well, because what are some of the sort of, I guess, some of those common mistakes you sort of touched on in terms of people perhaps not having engaged or not thought about, even as a customer, if they haven't thought about what colours should I wear, what clothes should I wear, what props should I have?
That's it.
How can that sort of, I guess, bring out a poorer sort of brand image result than ideal?
A lot of the time it just looks, it looks inconsistent. And consistency and people knowing what to expect from you is actually, I feel like it's super important in business. I don't want to go to someone who's doing one thing one week and then going and changing their career the week later. You want to...
That doesn't build trust, does it?
That's it. You need to having common imagery, things that relate to you and your story, that real continuity through your images builds that trust. That's what I've got in my notes here. It builds that trust with your clients. And probably some of the mistakes you see people do is they'll go from one photographer to another. Each photographer has a completely different style. And you could take exactly the same clothes, exactly the same props in for 3 different photographers, and your photos are more than likely going to turn out completely different. And that creates that lack of continuity through your brand.
And I guess, what advice would you have for small businesses on choosing the right photography style to align with their brand?
So, I mean, you've got to research your photographers. If you are a skincare company and you've got a really light and airy feel to your brand, you won't go with a photographer who's got a really dark and moody, contrasty type of photography, because it's not going to tell your brand story. It's not going to tell your brand story, and it's really not going to meet up. It's why when we do that initial process, I ask them to send me what they've got when it comes to their logo, their branding colours, all that sort of stuff, so that I can actually go, okay, so this is the type of brand you've got. At the same time, having said, you've got different photographers, I don't believe in having a style of photography that is so strong that it pigeonholes people into a certain box. I think I've said this a number of times on my social media. Your brand images should convey you as a brand with the photographer's style, not look like everybody else's photos because of the photographer's style.
You want it to be, and it's a team effort as well, the way that you approach it, and by considering all of those different elements, you'll come to a really good outcome.
So I think researching into a photographer is really important. Price is important for people, and we understand that as photographers, but like if you just jump in one day on a minis day with a photographer you never heard of, you really have not a lot of idea of how that's actually going to turn out.
And what are some practical tips for those who are perhaps just starting out and aren't at that stage yet to be able to engage a professional photographer? How can you capture, I guess, compelling and consistent visual content on a budget?
So there's some really great tools you can use that can create some continuity through your brand. You've got Canva, where you can put in your logos and
brand colours,
your colours and that sort of stuff, and obviously you can put photos into there. There's Adobe Express, which is really quite similar to Canva. It's run by Adobe, so it's really photography based. I think having some good photo editing tools, Lightroom, so that you can and maintain consistency through your imagery. So if you took this photo in this bright room and used these settings through filters, then use the same ones so that your photos actually have that continuity through them. And obviously I think engage a professional photographer.
That's it.
Take the time and invest in it, because it's well worth investing.
For that, and have that as I think that's a really good aspiration to have. And important to have, and I think and like you said, the questions about what's your brand stand for, what are you about, what do you hope to get out of it, they're questions that a business owner needs to know anyway.
Exactly.
So you need to make sure that you're doing that from the start, being really clear on that, so that when you do engage and you do invest in professional photography, that it's well worth it, because you're going to get the right outcome. But if you go into it unprepared, not knowing what your business is about, not having a clear idea, it's going to be a mishmash and a waste of everybody's time
and money
and energy and money.
So you're better off, I think you're better off holding back on investing in those sort of things to start with until you've really nailed down those core things when you're starting a business. And then you're not wasting your money going and doing it and then going, oh, well, I did this before and now I need to do it again. Make sure you've got that really clear pathway forward.
And I think also, and I think you would suggest as well, because your business evolves. Like I've been caught in the trap before where I've gone, well, I've got my professional photography, I'm done now for the next 3 or 5 years, I think it was. Businesses change, you change, and how important is that brand? It's not chopping, changing, it's actually letting your brand evolve and grow. What's your take on helping businesses to factor that into their strategy?
I've got a friend who runs multiple companies at the same time, and we've done photos across a 12-month period for both. Again, it's having that really clear idea as you go. So, we made sure that when we did this session, that this one was mainly purely directed towards this company, with a bit of a crossover through the middle. Obviously it's the same person. You're obviously not going to have
totally different.
One brand's going to be fluoro and another one's going to be monochrome sort of thing. You normally, as your brand evolves, there's normally similarities. And I guess as your brand evolves, you look over the imagery that you have had and really identifying whether that is still speaking to whatever you're doing as you're evolving on. You can see with your branding stuff moving from workspace into the regional collective, there is quite still a commonality between the two brands.
That's it. Because I like the colours.
Well, and you're the person.
And I'm the person.
You don't. Just because you change a business, it doesn't
me.
Change you and who you are as a person. And whether you like it or not, your personality comes through into your business. It's what makes your business unique.
That's it. And I think sort of, having a really good look at that sort of every 6 to 12 months is a really good time frame.
Yeah.
Because, you certainly would go, well, I'm not the same person and my brand is not the same, or my business is not the same 12 months ago.
Correct.
So if I'm using the same images and potentially the same, colours or the same, little icons or things like that, there may be an alignment or there may be a mismatch, but you've just got to review that, don't you?
That's it. Yep. I think reviewing it is probably the key factor in there if you're moving on. It was really important for the client I was speaking about, where she had multiple businesses, that some of the photos were transferable through all of that.
Yep.
And through 3 of the businesses that she was running at the time. Yeah.
And how can, I suppose, sort of looking at that, adjusting where needed and utilising the tools that you had, what are some small changes or tweaks that people can have a look at even today to have a look and make sure that their visual branding, their images that they're using, aligns with their business at the moment?
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a tricky question. I don't know the answer, so I'm asking you.
I guess, I think, you do your mind mapping and that for your business.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would go physical mind mapping.
Yeah.
I would lay out photos from everything you've done.
Yeah.
And then, kind of mind map that into whether these are actually going to fit into what you're doing or not,
And probably even having a look at, well, who's my customer today?
That's correct, yeah.
And it could be even like, what's the season of my business? Where are we at in my business?
Yeah.
And colours, like we talk about that even on a budget, if you go, okay, well, I've got light pink in my logo. So do you know what? When you take photos, and make sure there's a bit of light pink in there. There's some really sort of simple things that we can do on a budget, and when we're starting out as well, to make sure that there's that continuity, showing who we are. If you're a copywriter or a writer and you love a particular book, maybe that book makes a cameo in lots of of your images or things like that. So I think about those things.
The one thing that will never change is you. Yeah. So I mean, that's one thing that you need to think about when you're moving forward with a new business idea or what have you, is if you're moving from a more corporate based business into something that's more nurturing, you're going to have very different
feel to the brand, aren't you?
Different clothing, different ways that you do your hair, other ways you hold your body, all that sort of stuff.
So one of my questions was going to be how an example of businesses, how they can use visual storytelling to connect with their audience, their customers on an emotional level. Yeah. So that's kind of when you just talked about nurturing there.
Absolutely. Yeah. You really need to identify within yourself what stories that you want to tell to your audiences, and then we portray that. So say for instance you are a real estate agent. Clearly you'll have headshots. That's all we see, really. The cheesy headshot at the bottom of the property photo, and then you've got your property photos, the thing you're selling. Yes. But there's other things that you do. That's right. As a real estate agent that you do to nurture your prospective clients or whatever.
Support them. Yeah, it's quite a daunting process.
So there's so many different types of. I get asked it all the time. I did photos for a conveyancer, and she said, I do not know what photos you are going to get of us sitting around filling out forms for conveyance, to get all the stuff, for property handover. And I said, well, you're so much more than that. Same with a real estate agent. So, you go to the properties, you listen to your clients tell you that this has been their family farm for 80 years and now they've got to sell it. You are not just selling property. No. You are out there walking the streets, dropping flyers, giving people your business cards.
Being part of the community, there's a lot of involvement there.
Yeah, handing over keys, feeling that excitement for your clients
starting new lives and their homes.
There are so many things
Yep.
that you can look at beyond what it is that you actually do.
Yep.
That tell
Think outside the box.
Literally, that tell your story of what you do within your business.
Yep.
It's kind of a behind the scenes almost. You kind of need to go behind the scenes.
But I think that's where you do dig deeper than going, yep, we're going to take some nice photos. Good.
Yeah.
It's telling, like you said, telling those stories. And we as business owners are the keeper of our own stories. Yeah. And those visuals can help tell that and expand. Because that's part of business is actually we need to tell people what we're about.
Yep.
That's what marketing is.
Yes.
We need to tell them what we're about, why we do it, how we do it, how we can help them, and the
selling you.
That's it. But the visuals, they go hand in hand with the words. And I guess I'm looking at businesses and how I suppose we look at social media. How can they, make sure that they show up in their visual storytelling on socials, whether it's through stories or reels, and some best practice around that. Thanks.
Good question. I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
But sometimes it's about you don't have to be everything to everyone. Right?
No, you don't.
You just have to do what you feel comfortable in doing, and the visual storytelling that you're comfortable with as well.
Yeah.
At that point in time.
Yeah.
And also, you do want it to be aligned with your brand.
Mm.
So if you're not hey girlfriend, here's what I'm doing, get ready with me.
Absolutely.
If you're not that,
don't
be that.
Yeah. So, and I had this conversation with a friend the other day. I had a meeting with a prospective client and, my brain was saying, it's a school, so, do your hair nice, put your makeup on, get a nice jacket on, this and that. And I'm like, but the reality is, I'm actually not going to turn up to their photo shoot looking like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn up looking like this.
Yeah. Because
I need to be able to run around, jump.
Yeah.
I need my hair out of my face.
Yeah.
And it's really important to stay in alignment with who you are, because there is no point portraying something online and then turning up in your activewear.
Yep.
Because it's going to throw people off straight away.
Yep.
It adds just that barrier of between you and their trust.
And it's that trust level. So if you're pretending to be something that you're not, and then people meet you in real life, and I was saying this to Kat the other day, that when she shows up online and then in real life, they go, yep, that's Kat.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same.
Well, exactly. Because you don't want to, and I think that's the same as, there's just thinking about that for, any businesses that are wanting to be influenced by what they see on social media as well. You can't be other people, so just be you.
That's it. And you need to show up. To show up authentically, you actually need to be ready to do so.
Yeah.
Don't show up just because someone's telling you that you need to.
Yeah.
Show up because you actually want to be doing it.
Yeah.
Because your customers can see straight through the shit. They can.
They can sense bullshit.
They can see straight through it.
Yep.
I can.
Yep. Got a good bullshit meter.
And a lot of the time, if you show up unauthentically, you'll actually contradict yourself for something else that you've said in the past.
Yeah.
And it just stands out.
Yeah. Like
talking shit. Like you can just. Well, I was going to say dog's balls, but.
It's a not for kids show, so that's fine. So we can swear.
So, I think I had a real down point in the over the school holiday period and stuff. Was child going to high school and big emotional shifts happening, and I just did not. I didn't want to show up.
Yep.
But I know that over 13 years of running my business, I have built such an engaged community that I knew that I could take that time and then come back and my engagement would go back up. I feel very blessed as a business owner that I've got a little volume dial
down.
that I can dial down if I need to and dial it back up when I want to, and I know that things will pick back up again. Yeah. I think that is like the real indication that you've really nailed being authentic, running within alignment of you and really speaking to your audience.
So I'm saying, knowing who your audience are and go,
Yes.
yep, do you know what? This audience is, I'm not trying to please everybody, but the audience that I have, the customers, the client base, they'll get it.
Yep.
And if they don't, then that's okay. But you can't actually do more than that, I don't think.
No, I found a really useful tool. I don't know where, it was something that turned up in socials. Was very useful. Wouldn't be able to tell you what it was now.
No.
But you could log in on this website and you could put in a social media handle.
Yeah.
And it actually told you how engaged their community actually was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I put in some bigger brands and went,
Yeah.
that's not amazing. And then I went, I'll put in mine, and like I've got 100% engagement across the board.
Yep.
Which is huge for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, sometimes you don't be misled by, there's teams of people helping to make brands look really great. So if you're a startup and there's only you, don't feel too bad.
No, absolutely not. You'll find that as brands have teams.
So I think that's a really good way to finish up there. But thank you so much for all of those insights into visual branding, telling your story, showing up as you really are.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much.
No worries.